Swiss city of Geneva raised its alert level today and said it was looking for suspects who, according to national officials, had possible links to terrorism. Swiss authorities were reportedly looking for 4 men believed to be in or near the city. Federal police were not necessarily connecting the suspected to the Islamic State terror attacks in Paris last month. Welcome back. Every December 10th, the world marks Human Rights Day to commemorate the day on which, in 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The goal? To recommit to guaranteeing the fundamental freedoms of all. I-24 News correspondent Uri Shapira has the story.
The world marked the Human Rights Day Thursday, but there seems to be very little to celebrate. Thousands around the globe demonstrated against human rights violations. On December 10, 1948, the UN adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which said that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. However, in many areas in the world, it is still hard to see these ideals being implemented. According to Amnesty International, armed groups committed abuses in 35 countries this year. Nearly 30% of governments, according to the report, randomly restrict freedom. One of the countries in the spotlight is China, which, according to the UN report, detained nearly 1,000 rights activists last year, almost as many as in the previous 2 years combined.
Prolonged pre-trial detentions in China remain to be an issue. Application of lengthy solitary confinement remains to be an issue. Problems related to the defense lawyers, the way they are treated by the court, remains to be an issue.
Chinese officials rejected the allegations.
I think these years China has been pushing forward the rule of law in accordance with the law in various aspects, including opposing torture, in which we have made a great effort. Everyone can see that. We hope relevant committees can treat and handle relevant issues objectively and impartially.
This year, the UN is highlighting freedom as the main theme of Human Rights Day, and it stresses the 4 freedom speech by former American President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. 74 years after his landmark address, the fact that the world needs a Human Rights Day only serves to remind how far we are from reaching these goals.
Yes, and we are joined now live from the Human Rights Festival in Israel by Molly Malakar, Program Director of Amnesty International Israel. Good evening, Molly. You are at the first Human Rights Day Festival in Tel Aviv in Israel. I want to begin by asking you, reports show a decline in maintaining human rights in the country, whether it's inside Israel or in the Palestinian territories. What can you tell us about how the situation has changed, especially after Operation Protective Edge in Gaza?
Well, hello there, and thank you for joining the International Human Rights Day. Well, I must say that there is a very clear connection between security and ongoing conflict and human rights violation. When we look at the Israeli-Palestinian case, sadly, I must say that as long as a society or a country is engaged in ongoing conflict and war, security issues are always dominating any other issues. In other words, civic issues such as human rights are always subordinated to security issues, and these issues are always perceived through security lenses. So I'm afraid that we have many reasons to be concerned and worried about the status of human rights in Israel.
Well, Molly, speaking of security, because you mentioned it, and it is a very pivotal point, a lot of people say that in tight security situations, as Israel is going through right now, some liberties must be restricted. We hear that in France as well these days. France is still in a state of emergency after the attacks. People say that, you must hear this a lot, that when civilians are under attack, sometimes human rights are violated, and this is necessary to maintain security. What do you say to that?
Well, no one questioned the duty of government to provide security to its people, and certainly bring into justice and court those militia groups and individuals, as well as organized militia groups who attack civilians. This is certainly violation of a very basic human right. Yet, a state of emergency cannot play as a carte blanche to violation of human rights. In other words, human rights is not a privilege.
Yes.
Human rights in times of growing tension is certainly needed.
Well, Molly Malakar
What
joining
we are
us.
claiming here as Amnesty International is that state, although they have the right and the duty to provide security to its people,
Yes,
must
Molly,
regard
I'm sorry, I must end our
security measures
conversation
and
here. Molly, thank you very much for joining us from Tel Aviv. Congratulations on the very first Human Rights Day Festival in Israel. We will keep following next year for sure. Thank you for being with us.